Country? Country? No, let me put actually. Chuck it in the fucking bucket.
Actually, I do want more because it always fucking does. Oh, it just doesn't have any overlay rating anymore.
No, that's got there 10 minutes late. Sat there quickly, ate half of it. Didn't get to eat the other half. I ate like a quarter of it actually, because the other half like fell apart and I didn't have time, so I just closed it. Got off work, was gonna eat it at the station, but didn't want to eat it at the train, so I was like, ew, no, I want to wash my hands. So then waited till I got home, put it in the fridge. Came here, had another V. No, had the rest of my V from this morning, and then yeah, half of it, half of the quarter, half of the half. Oh.
So you tell me you've essentially eaten nothing today? You didn't even have a zinger burger. You didn't even have a zinger burger.
Copy that.
They don't have KFC.
But you didn't even get like a double chicken Big Mac. You didn't even get any classy. Or KFC.
But where am I going?
Alright, let's continue. So after I got back from California, I ran into Gabby on the street. Where's your coat, he asked. It's the middle of winter, Jesus Christ. I don't have one, I told him. I don't really have anything right now. Gabby took me to buy a heavy jacket, but when when he heard I was homeless, he couldn't be much help. My wife doesn't want me having anyone to stay at the house, he said, but I have an idea of how you can make some quick cash so you can find your own place. I don't know if you do coke, but I have some I'm trying to sell. If you're interested in helping me out. Yeah, I don't do it, but my friends do, I lied. I was a fucking junkie, but what did he know? I can definitely sell it for you. I dealt coke for Gabby for about 3 weeks while I bounded around from couch to couch. And then on my last trip to see him, he gave me 4 ounces to sell. Instead of selling it, I did it with all my friends and I never went back. It was all fine and well in my mind until the day I was walking around to get myself a sandwich from Hashway's Deli in North Bergen, and I heard a motorcycle pull up behind me. As I turned around, it was Gabby. Where the fuck's my money, Joey? I started running. I didn't know what else to do. I ran behind a church, through a rose bush, which tore me up with thorns, and I kept running until I got to the deli. I ordered my sandwich like normal, and then 3 minutes later, Gabby opened the door, gun in hand, and started screaming. I ran to the back of the store where the owner's office was and begged them to call the cops. I wouldn't leave my hiding spot until the cops are there, I said. When the cops came, they threw Gabby out of the store, but I figured I wouldn't last long if I'd see him. He had it out for me now, and so did basically everyone else. I felt like only a few people ever cared I existed. I remember the bartender at my regular bar, Joe and Mary's Tavern, looking at me with pure sympathy every time I was in there. I think my mum died of a broken heart, I said to her one day, gulping down my last sip of beer. Fuck it, can I get a Southern Comfort and OJ? Sure, she said, turning to make the drink. Then talking back to me over her shoulder. It could have been a broken heart, I could see that. She was really fucking sad all the time at the end, I said. I'm not dwelling on it or anything, but I took the drink from her and slugged it back. You got a place to sleep, Coco, she asked. She'd gotten to know me well enough by then to understand I didn't. Yeah, I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. I'm all set. I'm sorted. I was far from set. That's when I started sleeping in a rocket ship in the park by my old house in North Bergen. When I wasn't sleeping there, I was crashing at a friend's house. I was crashing at friends' houses in one big ongoing rotation, sometimes on an extra bed or couch, sometimes outside outside on a lawn chair. I'd shower in the same rotation, sometimes inside of the houses in the bathroom like a human, sometimes outside the house with a hose like a fucking animal. I went mostly unnoticed everywhere I stayed except where I was in line at the park with a bunch of kids waiting to get out waiting to get my morning drink of water from the fountain. If you think you can't thoroughly ball bust, you can't get thoroughly ball busted by a bunch of 5-year-olds. Guess again. My days were spent posted up at the bar waiting for assignments. Sometimes someone needed to push an ounce of coke or help load a truck or sell some quaaludes at the high school. I wasn't picky. I'd take any gig. Aside from the money and coke, I hated everything. If I saw a bug on the sidewalk, I'd step on it. If I was driving and saw a rabbit, I'd run it over. I wanted everything to die, like I was dying inside. Physically, I was keeping myself fit. I had muscles and shit, but mentally, I was broken, smashed into a million bits with no way to fix it. I wasn't really sure what I had to live for. My life had no value. This felt especially true the morning I woke up on a mattress in the back room of a friend's house. I opened my eyes and saw a giant pile of dog shit 4 inches from my face.
This is the doctor's office.
I only really wanted to kill myself once in life, and it was that day. I decided to do it by throwing myself over the George Washington Bridge. It seemed fairly simple to me. Pop a few pills, pound a few drinks, and then hop right over.
Now I gotta get to the safe.
In the end, I just didn't have the nerve. I figured I'd rather snort until I died instead. During the holidays that year, a dude named Joel asked me if I wanted to help him push coke, even though I had a horrible reputation for stealing from dealers. He agreed to have me help on a cash first basis. The deal was he'd come to me with an eighth, I'd give him the cash on the spot and I'd sell the coke, and then we'd do it over again. One night I was standing at the front of Midtown Lounge in the city and a car pulled up in front of me. A guy rolled down the window. It was my former teacher, Mr. Travola, Mr. Terranova, or Mr. T, as he was a really cool dude. He taught social studies, coached sports, and was an ex-junkie. "What's up, man?" he asked me, looking me up and down. "Coco, you don't look good at all." "I'm doing okay," I said, considered whether to tell him the truth or not.
Ah, damn it.
"Well, you don't seem okay," he said. "Drugs? You need something?" I asked. "No, I mean, are you using?" I didn't know how much I should reveal to him, but I could tell by the look on his face he knew the truth either way. "Trying not to," I said. Mr. T parked the car and jumped out. He walked over and put his arm around me. "You've been through some tough shit, kid," he said, taking a step back and examining me again. He shook his head. "I want to help you. Listen, I have a friend who runs a detox center. I can get you in. What do you say? Are you serious about getting clean?" I was blown away by this. Mr. T was doing me a solid here, and the way I saw it, if I wanted any shot at all of staying alive, I needed this. "Let's do this," I said. I took his number and I told him I'd give him a call on New Year's Day. I still wanted a few days to party and make some cash, and I sure as shit didn't want to miss New Year's Eve for either of those causes. He was cool with that and said he'd pick me up wherever I was that day and get me to the detox center, no problem.
Surrounded. Come out with your hands up. If you do not surrender immediately, we will open fire.
I knew Joel would be out on New Year's Eve night and would be relying on me to push most of our supplies, so I took advantage of it. I told him I didn't have enough cash to pay up front this go around, but if he gave me an extra ounce, I'd be sure to sell it and make us both a big profit. I'd be working the whole night for him. He must have not been thinking straight because he agreed. He said he'd meet up with me on New Year's Day to grab the money. My plan was to be long gone by then. I sold about $2,000 worth of coke, did a bunch of what I had left, and crashed at a $28 per night hotel. I woke up thinking I'd be out of there quick, be able to dodge Joel without an issue, but when I looked out the window, there was at least a foot of snow that had accumulated overnight. Fuck, I said aloud to myself, hunting around for a hotel phone to dialing Mr. T's number. Mr. T, this snow sucks, I said, and explained to him where I was. When do you think you can get me out? When do you think you can get to me? I'm going to try shovel my car out right now, he told me. Give me like an hour and a half and I'll be there. I hung up and touched my forehead, burning fever. I felt physically sick and terrified as fuck that Joel would get to me first. I wasn't prepared to give that cocksucker a dime. I packed up my clothes and took some medicine and stared out the window, counting down the minutes until Mr. T would be there. Like a kid waiting for old fucking Saint Nick. About 30 minutes later, the phone rang. It was Joel. This was about to be a race up against the clock. What's up, Coco? He asked coolly. I figured you'd be at that Fleabag hotel. I'll be there to grab my money in an hour. Fuck, I screamed, and when I hung up the phone. Now I was sweating my dick off. All I could do was pray to God that Mr. T got there before Joel did. All I had in the world was one blue military duffel bag, and I grabbed it off the floor and went down to the lobby to catch the parking lot from down there. I finally saw Mr. T's Cadillac rolling up. I ran to it, tossed my bag in, and told him to drive fast. As we rolled out of the lot, I saw what I feared. Joel pulling in, dumb to the fact that I was in Mr. T's car making a clean getaway with a wad of his cash and his coke up my nose. I ducked my head down and told Mr. T to keep driving. A mile or so down the road, when we were safely out of Joel's sight, I broke down. I told Mr. T what I'd been through that year and how it seemed like my life was over, like it wasn't worth living anymore, but there was nothing I could do to end it.
Can I read?
Yeah.
You play? Because I just died. Where are we up to? This page or this page?
Oh, the second page. Halfway down. More than halfway down.
A mile or so down the road, we were safely out of Joel's sight. I broke down. I told Mr. T everything I'd been through that year and how it seemed my life was over, like it wasn't worth living anymore, but there was nothing I'd do to end it. I could barely breathe as I was releasing every emotion into him. It's going to be okay, kid, I know it, he said. You've been through hell, but you do have people who care about you and can help you whether you want to believe it or not. Years later, I realised that was true. I just couldn't bring myself to believe it in that moment. We drove to Mr. T's house and he made a few calls to find out the status of the bed at the detox centre. What did they say? I asked him when he was done. Can I get in today? Turns out the bed isn't open yet, he said. But listen, we have an extra bedroom here. Why don't you just stay with us for a night or two while we wait? I followed Mr. T to the empty room. It was 5 p.m. by then, and I got into bed and fell asleep right away. I slept until 11 a.m. the next day, and then I went back to sleep and repeated the cycle. I think I slept for the majority of the next 4 days. After continuing to get a nothing available from the detox centre, we decided I would stay at Mr. T's for a while and dry out. I ended up staying with him until about the end of February. Only a couple of people knew where I was, which was perfect. I basically disappeared into the wind and I was off coke and booze, and the only thing I was touching was weed, which was nothing. The way I saw it, Mr. T was really changing my life. It was one bridge I'd never burned. Despite minding my own business at Mr. T's and trying to get my life together, my reputation in North Bergen was still following me. A buddy called Mr. T one day. Yo, Coco, did you do that? Joanne's house got robbed and her mum thinks it was you. It wasn't. I hadn't been in North Bergen in weeks, but that stung and I didn't really blame them much for the accusation. It may have made sense, but it was another sign for me that I needed to continue laying low. Eventually I got a job in Mr. T's neighbourhood at a liquor store, just trying to make ends meet. I started renting a room in a boarding house from a lady whose son would pop over every so often to smoke a joint with me. One night he had a gold chain on him and asked if I wanted to buy it. I bought it from him for $40 and took it over the bridge into the city to sell it for $200. easy cash in my pocket. Not long after, I was hanging out in my room listening to music on a stolen stereo and the doorbell rang. It was the cops coming to arrest me for possession of stolen property. It turns out the fucking junkie son had stolen that chain from his mum. When they tracked it down in the city, fingers pointed back to me. The cops loaded me in the car while reminding me that I also had a warrant out for my arrest in Bergen County for possession of stolen tools from some shit I did a couple of years ago. I figured it wasn't I was in for it. The cop was a cool dude though, and his lady's son was a known thief. On the ride to the jail, we stopped at a Chinese restaurant and had a nice meal together. We got to the station eventually, guts full of egg rolls, and I was put in front of the judge in minutes. All said and done, I was out by 11 p.m. just a fine when I was released. I realised I was out of a place to live. Surely that woman didn't want me living back at her house. I called my buddy George and he agreed to let me crash with him in Cliffside Park while I figured shit out. I was able to save some cash quickly and I was doing most of my spending on stolen credit cards. I wanted to get enough money together to get the fuck out of New Jersey again and head back to Colorado, specifically Colorado Springs because it was the fastest growing city in the country at the time. The timing seemed even more perfect when I got a call one day telling me an $18,000 check was waiting for me from that old insurance scheme I've been involved with. I picked it up, cashed it, and planned to check for the Colorado immediately. 2 days later, I was all packed and waiting outside a White Castle in Hudson County Park for a bus to New York. I was standing there, my soul blue military bag next to me, along with a new bag filled with stolen merchandise. Then I heard a motorcycle revving its engine. It couldn't be, I thought to myself, looking around slowly. But it was. Fucking Gabby pulling into the White Castle lot and stopped directly in front of me. You never gave me that money, Joey, he said, flipping up his face mask. It's $7,000 if your dumbass is having trouble remembering. Shit, Gabby, I said, I'm so fucking sorry, man. Listen, I had a lot of problems the past few months. I'm really sorry, he said, if you don't bring me my money this week, he cut me off, I'm gonna shoot you dead. I watched him screech away, shocked he hadn't realised I was leaving town, considering I was at a bus stop with 2 packed bags. Luckily, that was the last time I ever saw Gabby, cocksucker. That was so good. Chapter 13, The Cocaine Takeover. Road. On a tip from a guy I met on a People Express flight to Colorado Springs, I rerouted my destination to Boulder. The dude thought I'd fit in better there, and that's where I met Kathy. Kathy looked like a female, white version of Prince. Her hair was cut short like Jamie Lee Curtis, and she was blonde with blue eyes. She was sexy and had really cute little body, nice complexion, average height, maybe 5'6", and gave off a skateboard chick kind of feel. She was a very sweet, innocent girl when we met. Years later, I'd dream of killing her, but at that time, 1985, at only 22 years old, I fell in love with her almost instantly, or at least it felt like love. Kathy lived in the apartment right below me in Boulder. Even though she and her friends were always blasting music and I wanted to go down there and ask them to shut the fuck up, I never had the balls to. When we finally did get to talking one day, we liked each other and became inseparable. I was a loser heading to nowhere and back on my cocaine game, but she didn't seem to mind. Our relationship was centered on partying at the start, and she wasn't bothered by the person I was, even if that person was sort of a piece of shit. Thankfully, considering my lack of cash, Kathy was a superb cook. Like, her buffalo wings were out of this fucking world, and we ate at home a lot. When we did go out though, I was cool to spend all my stolen credit cards so she wouldn't suspect I had no money. She never asked a question about the cards, and Kathy knew when we met. The Kathy I knew when we met was cool. No matter what I was up to, she was on board. I got in the habit of expanding my wardrobe, including with expensive suits and shoes, by using the stolen credit cards at the Boulder local mall. Hanging around there so much, I ended up applying to work at the Foot Locker there. One day when I was working, a friend came carrying an envelope of cash. The second I spotted the envelope, I knew I needed to take it, so I did. The cops were cool and the blind quickly followed me, but things escalated when the cops started talking about how I fit the profile of someone who they were looking for, who had spent $40,000 at stores around the mall using stolen credit cards. When they showed up at my apartment the next day to follow up, I knew I was fucked. Yet again, I needed to get the hell out of town. Surprisingly, when I confessed the whole truth to Kathy, she was fine about it. Actually, she wanted to come with me. Wherever I was going, we landed on San Francisco. I told her on Sunday night, and the very next morning we hopped on a plane. We left without saying anything to her parents, just got the hell out of there. Kathy's parents were fuming when she finally called to fill them in, but we figured we'd worry about that whenever we moved back. San Francisco didn't last long. After a whirlwind of typical bullshit, swiping master keys from hotels to rob patrons' rooms, selling fake travelers' checks to San Francisco tourists, stealing bank deposit bags and cash from a safe during a job interview at the Italian restaurant, and so on. We fled San Francisco too. I happened to talk to Jimmy Burkle, who was still in Snowmass Village, and new house sitting at what we could only be described as a fucking mansion. He told us to come, so we did. The house was really huge, like a multi-million-dollar house, even back then. The living room was alone the size of most people's backyards. We were only there a few days before Jimmy filled me in on some exciting news. He and his girlfriend were moving back to Jersey and he wanted me to take over the house sitting for him. It was a dream. Kathy and I were only technically supposed to stay in the apartment over the garage. The house was off limits, but who was going to tell me what to do? Do you feel me? I started working as a security guard at the Crestwood condominiums there, and Kathy landed a job as a waitress at one of the local restaurants. We were doing great as a couple, plus I stopped doing coke again and really stopped, and we even got our own dog, a German Shepherd named Hercules. I wasn't even thinking about committing any crimes. I was so happy just having a girlfriend and a dog and living in this house. I felt so normal, and whatever stupid shit I'd done before in Snowmass was forgiven and forgotten. People there seemed to have a short-term memory. But eventually, of course, I needed to complicate things. A few months into living there, a buddy from Jersey called me up. "What are you paying for coke out there?" he asked me. Honestly, I haven't done that shit in over a year, I told him. A couple of lines on New Year's Eve and that's it, but I'll ask around for you. I found some people were paying $1,800 for an ounce, so I called him back a couple of days later and let him know. "Can I come out to visit you tomorrow?" he asked. "I want to show you something." He rolled up the next day with a bag of coke, shoving it in my face. "I'll sell you this coke for $800 an ounce," he said. "I can also teach you to cook it and recut it so that it still looks untouched and you can double your money." Sure as hell I took the bait. He left me 6 ounces. And I sold all of it in a couple of days. I was also back to snorting too, almost instantly. I was hooked again and started making regular trips back and forth from Snowmass to Jersey to run deals. I started out great, as it always did, and it wasn't just the coke I was making a buck on shipping back and forth. One night I was watching Miami Vice and I realized, fuck it, I needed a new gun. I wanted the same shit Sonny Crockett was using. When I found out how easy it was to buy guns in Colorado comparing on how hard it was in Jersey, I instantly saw a business opportunity. I was going to sell guns in Jersey. Every time I flew back, I'd pack a suitcase with 8 or 9 guns and some bullets, top the suitcase with some clothes, and I'd check my luggage without a problem. Next stop, Newark, my friend would pick me up at the airport, drive us back to North Bergen, and his mum would make us spaghetti and meatballs, and then I'd go sell the guns. Later that night, 7 blocks into our Snowmass Village day, and a call from some dude from the Snowmass neighborhood. He said I had a bunch of people who were pissed off. They felt like I was undercutting them with my coke deals and that I was disrupting things in their business. He demanded I meet up with them, and I met down at Snowmass Mall. And they asked me to get in the car with them. These motherfuckers had the balls to tell me to put a bag over my head while we were driving. "We can't risk you see where we're going," the one guy said. We drove for about 30 minutes and we finally stopped. They pulled me out of the car and walked me to a house where they finally took the bag off. "Sorry about that man. We weren't trying to intimidate you or anything," the guy said, laughing. "Listen, we're a part of something big here in the area, and instead of us bumping heads, why don't we work together?" At the time, I kid you not, I'd been able to put away about 80 grand in just a few months running my coke and guns back and forth. In the back of my head, I knew the money could disappear as quickly as it had appeared, as money had done in the past and time again, but for now I was sitting pretty. "What do you mean, work together?" I asked. "You guys are paying $1,800 an ounce. I can't pay that." "We'll work with you on that. Don't worry about it." I told them I'd think about it, just to give me some time. Eventually I figured, what the fuck, you throw spaghetti against the wall, eventually some's gonna stick. What these idiots didn't know though was that while I was still working with them, I was still making my Jersey trips. I was selling from both ends, staying in their good graces and making a shit ton of money, storing my earnings in a shoebox under my bed. I was told by these dudes to join the Snowmass Club, a very high-end golf club / bar and fitness center, and to do all of my drug deals for them down there. A bunch of people were in on it,
Bro, that's
including
bullshit.
the receptionist at the gym. You hand her cash and go work out, then you got back to your locker, the coke would be in there waiting for you to take it and sell it and repeat the cycle. The more coke I did and less I slept, the more out of my mind I was becoming. I'd convinced myself I was the most badass drug dealer that ever existed, and I was acting like it. I started making these things called bazookas for myself. I'd take a cup of coffee, fill it with 3 inches of water, put a gram of coke in it with 3/10 of a gram of baking soda. Then I'd toss it in the microwave for 30 seconds, pull it out and take the chunks of coke out. I'd break up the chunks, put them into a joint or cigarette and smoke it. If we ran out of reefer or cigarettes, our little crew, me and a couple of buddies out there, would use a bong to smoke it instead. We ended up smoking so much of the shit out of our bong that it actually melted. It was a party every fucking night. Our theme song at the time was Hotel California, and to this day I can't hear that song without getting some intense flashbacks. Soon I went from being convinced I was untouchable as a drug dealer to being absolutely sure I was being followed by the cops. I was sure I was about to get busted, and I also started blowing through cash, which was going out of my pocket quicker than it was coming in. Eventually I stopped making the Jersey trips and the money dried up right away. One day I looked in that shoebox and there was no fucking money left. I'd blown through it all with my bullshit and delusions of grandeur. Cocaine goes from fun to scary quick. It seemed like one night we were all up on coke, talking and having fun, having a fucking blast, and the next night the coke flipped the card on me. My mind started playing tricks. I started to hallucinate all the time, and I thought every person I passed on the street was out to get me. I was sure cops were watching me everywhere I went. Before I knew it, I was spending most of my time looking over my shoulder at people who weren't there. I started hiding the coke and any bit of money I had in case... I started hiding the coke and any little bit of money I had left in case I got raided. I also convinced myself that Juan was going to give me money, like $500,000 of inheritance from my mom's death, and I'd leave to go to Europe or some shit. I was sure this money was, without a doubt, coming to me. This lie had lived in my head somewhere for years, but now the cocaine was making it seem even more believable. Needless to say, that money didn't exist. There was one customer of mine who was a semi-regular, but I didn't like that he'd asked me to meet him at weird locations. I didn't fully trust this fuck. "You don't always gotta hug me, guy," he said to me one night, shoving me off. On God, I would never stop hugging him because I needed to make sure that he didn't have a tape recorder on him. Next time I met up with him, he wanted to do the deal at my house, specifically outside. This was a big red flag for me. I wore someone else's jacket, hat, and sneakers as a disguise, putting no thought into the fact that if someone were watching us, a dead giveaway would be.
If you look suspect. A
dead giveaway would be that the deal was happening where I lived. When the customer got to me, I asked him to pull into my garage and I got in the car with him. I asked him to take a ride around the neighbourhood as a cover as we were circling back at a house about 90 yards from mine up on a hill. There were cop cars. Then I saw a guy sitting out there with a telescope. I knew they were watching me. Maybe these cops weren't going to get me that night, but they were definitely going to get me eventually. I fucking knew it. I needed an exit strategy and fast. Naturally, my only option to keep myself safe was to stack up some cash by any means possible and get out of Snowmass again. I did the math on where I was at, and I'd gone from 80 grand up to only 100,000 collectively to 3 different people. If I had skipped town, those debts would surely be absolved. By then, Kathy and I were sort of on the outs. She too was finally getting tired of my shit. The previous month, she'd gone to Denver for her brother's wedding, and I was supposed to fly out and meet her. But I got high and fucked up, and my flight was scheduled for Saturday morning. That Friday night, I scored a few ounces of coke, and I was really good coke. I did a line, then I did another line. One thing led to another, and I stayed up the entire night, doing as much as I could with my buddies.
Bro, see, don't though. You should have gone on your ones with it and just had a mad fucking bro.
I rescheduled my flight for later in the day that Saturday. By the time I missed my new flight, I was fucked. My friends left and it was just me peeking out windows, thinking people were outside looking for me. I decided to I decided to hide whatever was left of the coke in the sink, so in case the cops I'd run the garbage no issue. Nothing for them to find except a maniac bugged out of his fucking mind. Roaming the house with my pistol in my hand, looking at every corner. I even refused to let Hercules outside because I didn't want to open the doors. By 10:30 p.m. on Saturday night, I thought I had heard something inside the house, so I called the cops. When they got there, I could tell they were looking at me funny. Everything seems to be intact here, Mr. Diaz, they assured me. I worried whether they'd check my sink, and if they were there to arrest me or protect me. We didn't see anything of concern here. I'm telling you guys, someone was here, and I told them. They left unamused. The next time I called them, not too much later that night, they brought a third cop with them and did a walk around. around the outside property too. At this point I was basically just calling the cops on myself. Listen, the new cop pulled me aside. It's time to put that bag away. Starting to see things. What are you talking about? I asked, more paranoid. Sir, you're high. We know that. Try and get some sleep in the game and don't call us again. Got it?
Oh my god, bro.
We're not going to respond anymore. When they left, I noticed footprints near one of the locked closets in the house, but I wasn't sure were cops. Were the cops or mine? I decided to flush the rest of the coke. Whatever coke came back up from the swish of the flush, I licked off the bowl. Despite me missing her brother's wedding, Kathy still loved me enough to ride it out for the time being. That next month was rocky, but when Thanksgiving came, my exit strategy was forced into play. I decided to have a Thanksgiving Day drug dealer party to get people on my good side in case anyone was looking at me weird. I went to the supermarket and got a giant turkey and all of these custom steaks. I had no money, but I was acting like Johnny Bananas. I was making believe I was a fucking gangster. I invited like 8 people over and all the food was set to cook that morning. But the night before the holiday, I bumped into an ounce of coke and got carried away. I didn't get back to the house until Friday. When I walked in, Kathy's face was pale. This can't continue, Joey, she said to me. Her tone wasn't angry at all. She spoke to me completely out of concern. I think we need to leave. I don't want to stay either, I said, walking towards her for a hug. Let's get out of here. Let's go back to Boulder. We had $8 total between the two of us. I made a few calls to people out east and managed to get about 5,000 on one. I had nothing to take with me to snort, though, which would be a problem, and I figured no one was going to give me anything in Snowman's. Then I remembered I had a pound of weed I bought that looked like something of a High Times magazine, but it was that
Susquehanna hash weed.
Susquehanna weed?
Yeah.
It did nothing to you. I wanted to get rid of the shit anyways. I have an idea, I thought to myself after brainstorming for a while. What if I try swapping this weed for some of Marina's coke? Marina was this badass chick who was heavily looped into the drug scene there. She hated me, but it was worth a try. I don't want to fucking hear it unless you have some of the money you already owe me, Marina said when I showed up at her house. You got anything for me or what? I don't. But wait, hear me out, I said, ready with a light. I have this customer who's stuck. It's someone we can't lose. She stared at me waiting for more information. Can you give me half an ounce of coke? I'll leave 400 cash in this pound of weed with you, and then I'll bring you the rest of the money when I get it from him. Marina took the weed from me and sniffed it. Hold on to it so you know I'm good to pay you back, I assured her, hoping she'd buy in. I'll bring the rest of the cash back to you and we'll be set. What Marina didn't know is that I had my car packed, Kathy, Hercules and all, and she was ready to hightail it. And was ready to hightail out of town the second I left her house. When she agreed to the deal, I took the coke and got the fuck out of there. Kathy and I got on the 82, pointed the car south, and we were off. I know we were still supposed to be house sitting, but I figured out those owners would fare better with us long gone. Plus, that was the least of my worries. What's the problem? Kathy asked about an hour into our drive. The paranoia following you? I thought we were leaving that bullshit in Snowmass, Joey. Oh, his mum, Denora. And his dad, Manolo. Manolo! A young Coco dressed to the nines.
Nice.
A bunch of us got together at my mom's bar. New Jersey to celebrate a birthday. Good.
Yeah, I think Kathy was his wife, and so this is where this is going, bro. This is gonna get ridiculous.
Me and my mom fucking killing it? Yes, bro. Hey, 8th grade graduating class.
It's the regular main sense of New York.
Louis Balzano Bartolomeo.
Yeah, it was like his brother.
Hey, I got some extra gas stamps. Interested?
Yeah, sure. I'm interested.
All right, here you go. Fork over the dough.
Sure. Here's your money.
Thanks, pal. Now forget you saw me.